Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. How's it going? It's your boy, Demeki. And I'm here today to talk to you about comic book collecting. And maybe you're just getting into it. Maybe you're not sure you want to get into it, but you don't know how to start. But I'm going to hopefully guide you through on what you need to know in order to start collecting comic books. So let's get right to it. So what got me into comics? Well, back in the early days for me, the 90s, when I was a kid, we had Saturday morning cartoons, just like, I don't know if they exist now, thanks to Netflix and whatnot, but Saturday morning cartoons is what did it for me. Back then we had Batman the Animated Series, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man, 1992 X-Men, just all kinds of comic book character TV shows. But what really got me into comics was one particular episode in general of the Spider-Man cartoon show, and that was when Spider-Man removed the suit, the black suit, the symbiote, from him in the church tower, just like in the comics, and Eddie Brock was there, and he got his hands on it and became Venom. And I just fell in love with that character because of the way he looked, his backstory, you know, a guy just like was trying to do something right, but did it the wrong way. And like, Eddie's not a bad guy, just maybe a misunderstood guy. Maybe that's why I like him so much, but that's what got me into comics. I remember shortly after that, I was just obsessed with everything Venom. Everything Venom, I was just obsessed with it. I wanted every book that ever came out. I thought he was cool as hell. He's just a big dude, big beefy dude, and like the way Venom's drawn, it was just awesome. Like I just think he's cool. Like, I don't know. So that's what did it for me. And then I remember I traded some baseball cards for, and I still have it, and I actually, this was around the 4th grade, but I've had this comic since I was in 4th grade, but I traded some baseball cards with one of my friends for this comic book. And it has literally traveled the world with me because I love Venom that much. And it was Venom Lethal Protector #1. And I just recently got it graded, and I mean, for being something that I've had since 4th grade, it actually stayed in pretty good condition. It got a 5 out of 10. But I mean, like, this is what started it for me. It was this book, and it has a lot of sentimental value, and I love it. I love it. He's a great character. And that's what you have to determine. Like, if you're just starting to get into comics, you have to find a character that you can relate to, or even a story, something that you can either relate to or you enjoy. Start there. You don't have to start with immediate, like, if it's like, let's say Spider-Man. Let's say you love Spider-Man and you want to start with Spider-Man. You can start with the most recent run of Spider-Man comics and be fine. You don't have to get the very first appearance of Spider-Man. That comic's worth a shit ton of money, obviously. So you don't have to start there. You can start now. If you want to start collecting. Now, if you just want story and you don't care about holding the physical comic or having the physical comic, and you want to start from day one of a character, especially Marvel related, you can get Marvel Unlimited and read to your heart's content every single one of their older comics. None of their more recent stuff. I don't know exactly when they rotate onto that platform, but like, if you just want story and you want to read comics, I highly recommend Marvel Unlimited. Not sure if DC or Dark Horse or Image have any of the online platforms like that, but I mean, if that's solely what you want to do, I highly recommend Marvel Unlimited. I use Marvel Unlimited to read through some of my older books, especially things that I've had graded, because once they're graded, you're not cracking that case open to take them out. That's purely just for like, hey, look, I got this comic and it's really high grade and it looks nice. It's just a way to display something that is sentimental to you or is worth a lot of money and you just want to gloat. But we'll get into that in another video. We're still talking about collecting. So the other thing, like, let's say you're a Star Wars fan. Marvel is doing great, amazing things with the Star Wars universe. It is awesome what they're doing. The stories are so good, and they tie in perfectly to episodes 4, 5, and 6. They've got these Darth Vader runs that are just the story's awesome. The first run, it's all about him finding out who the pilot was that destroyed the Death Star, and then he ends up finding out that it's Luke. Like, and there's just so much within that first run that makes you understand Darth Vader better, and his story that wasn't really portrayed out in 4, 5, and 6. And I think it adds more depth to Vader. Essentially because like in episode 3 we didn't get a lot of depth for Vader. We got Anakin immediately going out of his mind because he's worried about losing Padme and whatnot. Like, to me, I felt like the movie episode 3 was rushed. It didn't flow well. I still enjoyed it, but it didn't flow well. Now, if you want a better story when it comes to episode 3, I highly recommend the novelization of episode 3. It's a great book. And I know I've talked a lot about Marvel already. So for DC, speaking of DC, random thought. And maybe DC will see, someone from DC will see this video and think it's funny, but why not do something goofy every once in a while? Like, I know they do goofy stuff. Like, some of the villains are pretty goofy in all the different comic books, but like, I think it would be funny because like we're always telling, as a kid, you know, you're always told, don't run with scissors, don't run with scissors. Well, what happens if one of Flash's villains knock him out and then permanently attach a pair of scissors that he can't get off of him, and then he runs and he ends up dying because he was running with scissors? I think that would be great. I think that would be funny. Nice little meme. I'm not knocking DC. I'm not saying I'm pro Marvel, F DC. Not saying that. DC has some great characters. It's just their universe for me is a little confusing. I haven't really picked up any of their more recent comics, especially with the New 52 and whatnot. So I can't really tell you much about DC. But again, I'm not saying don't just go with Marvel. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should find something that interests you and go with that. DC, I do love DC shows. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Flash. I love Arrow. Gotham's pretty good. And it's just their comics have never, like, I've never been like, oh, I need that comic. The only time I've been like, oh, I want the comic and I'm working on it right now is Batman Nightfall. I read, back when I was younger, I read a novelization of Batman Nightfall of when Bane broke Batman's back and Azrael had to take over as Batman. That was a phenomenal book and I highly recommend it. And also, like, that's one particular story that I'm really interested in because I like Bane. I think Bane's a cool villain. And sometimes that's also another reason why to get into a book. Is not necessarily for the hero. Maybe it's the villain. You know, everybody loves Joker. He's one of the best known villains that there are. And he's got a lot of great story arcs when it comes to Batman. And so there's another reason why you might want to get into comics and what you should look for. The best way to collect comics, though, let's get into that. So if you're looking for back issues, these are, you know, previously printed issues from whenever, bronze, copper, golden age, modern, whatever it may be. the internet's going to be your friend on this. Trust me. You can go to local comic book stores. The local comic book stores where I live in San Diego, I haven't found one that really interests me thus far. Because for me, I'm very particular when I go find comics. Like the staff has to be friendly. They have to be knowledgeable. They gotta know their inventory. When I go to these comic book stores here in San Diego, it's crowded. For one, there's just crap everywhere. It's hard to maneuver through most of the stores because they just have so much inventory. The staff may be friendly, but they have no idea what they have because they're working on archaic like ways of selling books. Like it's just pretty much books in boxes, and you got to go look for what it is that you want. And I don't have all the time in the world to spend my whole day in a comic book store. Like I would love to, but I just don't have that kind of time. Like I'm looking for something very particular, or it's just new issues, and the new issues are easy to find because they're on like magazine stands, newsstands, whatever. They're just easy to access. But the older stuff, when I'm looking for that, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna use the internet. I'm gonna use eBay, I'm gonna use Midtown Comics, or any other online retailer for comic books. That's where I'm gonna go. It's just 10 times easier to find what it is that I'm looking for, and I don't want to deal with the hassle of digging through boxes and boxes of fucking comics. I do a lot of my stuff through Midtown. I did the Marvel subscription service. I was very disappointed, and it comes from Midtown, which is surprising, but I was just disappointed at the overall shipping of how they send out the comics. It's just this plastic and then a really thin, it's not even a backboard that you would use to protect the comic, similar to the, let me see, I know I have some right here. Yeah, like this is normally how you would protect your comic. You would put it in a nice plastic bag with a backer. These are like, it's not even this type of backer or plastic. It's just like when you get an advertisement in the mail, right? That's pretty much what it is. It's like that type of plastic for an advertisement, and then the backer that they have in there is just like old school way of how you used to be able to, before the internet, how you would subscribe for comics. Like you would check off, oh, I want, you know, these characters, and then you would mail it in. That's pretty much what the backer was in this, and it wasn't a nice thick piece of paper. It's kind of flimsy. So like all of the comics I've been getting in from that subscription service have been getting damaged because fucking postmen don't give a shit. They're just like, here's your stuff. So that was disappointing. Now I'm on their pull list, so I'll let you know how that goes. I'll do a thorough review of that whenever I start getting them in. But yeah, like I think this is a great time to get back into comics, or to even get into comics if you're interested. I have a 6-year-old, and I've been showing her. She's been interested, of course, because she likes the art. I mean, when we're kids, what do we like? We like little pictures and stuff, and comics are awesome. And it's a great way for me to sit down with her and read a story, read some Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen to her, show her all these different comics, especially the heroines. Like they're doing a lot of things, and I'm happy about that when it comes to the female characters. Like I want her to see strong female characters now growing up, and most of their stories are really interesting. But like I think it's a good way for her and I to connect and bond, and also a good way for me to teach her reading. Like it's so nice because I think a comic book's one of the great ways to teach kids how to read, because they love art growing up, and you get the art and you get the story, and I just think it's an overall good way to interact with your kids. So I hope I was helpful in your journey of knowledge on how to get into comic books, and if you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button and smash that subscribe button.